Ladies and gentlemen, big Herald News.
Hey, kia ora koutou e te whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hero News. Kia ora, Chewie.
Kia ora, Pat.
How
What's
are you?
cracking?
What's cracking?
I am good. I am good. I worked something out the other day. Obviously, my wife and I have ploughed through Andor season 1 and 2, and then did Rogue One. We just moved on to another series of related watching. It's the Hunger Games, and I'm sitting here going, why are we watching so much media that is about what an
Apocalyptic
oppressive
futures.
government is like and how to build a resistance? It's almost like there's something just unspoken sitting between the lines. Very interesting. The Hunger Games should not be as good as it goddamn is, and I'm not sorry to say it.
I jump into that series probably once every 18 months to 2 years and watch all of them again. I know the first one, the first couple really, really well. The last few not quite so well, but yeah, it's a great series, that's for sure. I don't know if I talked about this last week, but speaking of movies and entertainment, I watched Better Man, Robbie Williams movie, finally and properly, both with my partner and then with my 18-year-old who told me I'm not allowed to watch it without her. That did really badly at the box office. It did like 22 million worldwide, and it cost 110 million to make. So like, it's a complete commercial flop.
Because nobody knows who Robbie Williams is in the States.
But I liked it. I really liked it.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm just saying there's a reason why it did poorly.
You can see why they got nominated for an Oscar for the monkey hair. Basically, every time they did, I went, "Look at his hair." That's all I could basically say about the monkeys. It was a pretty cool. It's a pretty cool flick. I quite liked it, but didn't do well. I guess it just goes to show I've got no taste whatsoever.
No,
Anyway.
it just goes to show that we need to cut off America from everything. No more culture for them. They don't know who Robbie Williams is.
Kiwi Bird says Louise screwed over beneficiaries on the weekend. Yeah. We'll come back to this as well, Kiwi Bird, I'm sure, through the week. And just to, sorry, I can't put that up as you were saying your last sentence, but I've got an 18-year-old, and it's like one of her favourite movies of all time. She doesn't know who Robbie Williams is. She now knows all the songs, and she's singing them to me. And I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, I met him. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I saw him in concert. What? So it has reached that generation. So big week this week, whānau. There's always the risk of announcing guests upcoming if important things happen and they can't make it. So
Watch
all I
Pat
will say,
jinx this.
or I will say to you, right as of right now, Debbie, Ngāre Wapaka, and Rawiri, co-leaders of Te Pāti Māori, will be with us live tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Did I just say Robin Williams instead of Robbie Williams? Maybe. So as of right now, organised in the weekend, confirmed with one of those little thumbs up people are sending each other now when you put it on the actual message, co-leaders of Te Pāti Māori joining us tomorrow night live at 9 p.m. So what I'm hoping is if I have just jinxed it, it still means we'll get one of them, because it's been confirmed that we'll have both of them, Chewie. And I think that's actually quite a coup, because other than they're on Te Karere, I think, or the Marae, I don't know if they've done very many interviews like together since the whole suspension stuff. So, cheer.
And we've had Debbie on the show.
Yep, a few times.
Previous.
Yep.
Have we had Rawiri?
I've never spoken to Rawiri, no. So,
First timer.
he gets to pop his
Very
cherry.
exciting.
The other thing for people to know is we are suited and booted. Is that what they say, Chewie? I'm suited and booted. Friday week, I should say. Friday week in Auckland at the Long Room in Ponsonby at 7 p.m. for a meetup. Right? We'll remind you about this as we go through. 7 p.m. Friday the 6th, Long Room, Auckland meetup. Now, I'm sorry that we're not going to be able to do it to everyone through the country, but when I travel by myself, I don't often have Chewie in the overhead luggage. And when he travels by himself, it's normally to see a punk band, and he wouldn't want anything to do with anyone outside the punk community. And this one time, obviously, because...
And Ponsonby, no less.
Because we're just, we're just going to Auckland for an award show. It's nothing serious.
Is this the place that we had impromptu drinks last time you and I were in Wellington together, and we did it under the ghostly glow of an enormous National Party billboard?
That kept glitching from memory. No.
Yeah.
No,
it's not the same place. Okay.
No.
But cool analogy about that national billboard. The glitching that Pat's talking about is the human face would suddenly switch out for a lizard and then back in again. It was really unsettling.
Now, for patrons, there'll be another event on as well, and I'll be putting that on patreon.com some stage between now and the next 48 hours. It's been a very busy day. Very busy day. If you are someone who had outstanding merch, then there's a good chance you received an email from us today saying your merch is on the way. If you ordered your merch kind of after Thursday of last week, you may not have got an email, especially if it was Women's Refuge merch, because that's the stuff we have to order to print. If you ordered other merch after Thursday of last week, and it was like a black t-shirt that we had in stock, you may have got an email today as well. And there is one person that I'm very apologetic to. I've also already emailed them that one of the t-shirts that came down, I wasn't happy with the quality. It had a bit of a pulled thread. So I said, nope, we're going to send this back to our supplier. And I'm sorry, but you have to wait for a bit longer. And they said, that's fine, no problems. So speaking of, remember we are supporting Women's Refuge until the end of May. So that's basically for the rest of this week. If you purchase a hoodie or a t-shirt off the website, bhnshop.nz, then you contribute towards us donating safe nights to Women's Refuge. If you order a hoodie, we will donate one full safe night. Every 2 t-shirt orders that come in, we will do a safe night for 2 t-shirts. You don't have to buy 2. You buy 1. Someone else buy 1. There's 2. There's not. I don't want to guess, but I'm thinking we might be like 30 safe nights, 20 or 30 safe nights, which is pretty cool. So well done, you guys. We're probably more than that, because like what we've been saying as well, if you don't need a hoodie but you got $100, then just go straight to Women's Refuge. All good. Or if you've got $15 and you can't afford a hoodie, then just go straight to Women's Refuge and donate straight to them. The other thing I'd like to share with you is, yes, we have finally got up our fuck around, find out gear. And it's all there and it's ready to go. And I'm sorry that it took a bit longer than I said to get up there, but black and white hoodies are there. You'll notice the similarity to the tax work less. It's a similar style. And the black and white t-shirts are there. And every single... Now, so we've got a little bonus for these as well. If you buy a fuck around, find out hoodie before the end of May, we will donate a safe night, but we will also include a 5-pack of fuck around, find out stickers in your order as well. If you order a fuck around, find out t-shirt, that gets us halfway to a safe night, and we will order a 5-pack of fuck around, find out stickers with your order. The extra stickers are only for the fuck around, find out, but that's what we're going to do. So ordering a fuck around, find out hoodie, you donate a safe night to Women's Refuge, you get the hoodie, and you get a 5-pack of stickers. Ordering a fuck around and find out t-shirt, you contribute towards half of a safe night, and you get a 5-pack of stickers. They're all yours. Go for it. And those sticker packs are worth $22.
Savings.
Well, it's $22 with the stickers. That's what they're valued at. So it's basically spending $55 on a t-shirt and get a $20 gift thrown in for free, $22 gift. So we like to
perfect stickers for pedestrian crossings, for National Party MP vehicles.
Yeah.
For windows.
Yep.
You can put stickers on a lot of things. I'm not sure that people really understand the versatility of your average sticker. Best way is to buy a t-shirt, get some stickers for nothing, and try. Just try doing stuff with stickers. I came from a poor family where I wasn't allowed to put stickers on everything. I had to save them like they were special treasures. We're adults now. You can put I give you permission to put the stickers on everything.
I don't.
Everything.
But Chewie's allowed to do that because he's the loose unit. He's the one that, that gets us in trouble.
I am the danger.
Yeah. Although we did do dueling Wookiees just before the show. Should we do them again? Should we see what they think? I think I'm a bit more of I'm a girly
Clear winner.
Wookiee. Yeah.
Clear winner.
I think so. Yeah. Oakley Dokley, neighbourinos. Big show tonight. Lots of video tonight. Lots of video for us to reflect on. NZME has... yeah, I'm sorry. Interrupting. Yes, what?
Sorry. This is just a taste of what's to come. I will become unbearable for the next 28 days on this. Fam, a lot of you will know what I'm talking about. Submissions for the RSB are now open and the website is getting absolutely crushed. So write your submission down in a Word document or a notepad or whatever, because if you pop it in, the website might crash. Don't do what I did last time and have to rewrite on the website 5 or 6 times getting it to load.
Yeah.
Tell your friends, tell everyone. I'm going to keep on reminding you until they get more submissions than they did for the Treaty Principles Bill. This is the danger. This is what David Seymour wants to come through. And my mission in life from now until the end of this is to make sure that David Seymour doesn't get what he wants. That drives me. I will keep reminding you. Message ends.
Well, interesting you would mention David Seymour. We'll start with him tonight, shall we? We're going to have a look at we talked about last week, but we had budget day, so we didn't touch on it, and that's Mehdi Hasan straightening out Piers Morgan. It's an interesting watch. I know. I actually, if we had done it last Thursday, we would have been first in the world, I think, from this kind of blogosphere. But a bunch of American guys touched on it on Friday and Saturday. But we'll have a look at it tonight because it's really interesting. Also, obviously, Nikki Noboats on Q&A with a disastrous. I was watching it again tonight. I've watched it like 3 times. We could just sit here and watch the full 26 minutes. We could actually one night we might do that. Just like have a whole show be a 26-minute reaction to a to a thing, but not tonight. Because also we want to have a look at this new show, quote unquote show, that NZME is putting out. It's called Herald NOW. NZME is running a show called Herald NOW. It's going to be every single morning, I think, or weekday morning, I guess. I think from 7 till 9, something like that. And Chewie, I know you'll be happy about this because you get to see your old mate, Ryan Bridge, again, hosting.
Oh, how's Ryan's haircut doing?
He's doing pretty good. I'm intrigued also, as we've always said, and Chewie reminded us of last week, we often commentate on the commentators. So it's going to be quite interesting to delve into what this Herald Now is, what kind of numbers it's doing and why they're doing it. Because obviously if it's on from 7 till 9, in the NZME universe, it's going up against Mike Hosking in the NZME universe.
Okay.
Now, I suspect management at NZME have basically said, and they're probably right, that nothing can touch Mike, right? They just
Ugh. Nothing should want to touch Mike. Sticky.
So I'm just putting my little ringer off. There it goes. So I think they're probably doing it as an experiment anyway, not worried about it impacting his numbers at all, but it will still be interesting to see what they do. It's funny to hear Ryan Bridge this morning talking about, I was in rehearsals all last week, when basically he's doing a version of what we're doing, and he had a full week of rehearsals to try and figure out how to talk to someone else sort of a desk, which is interesting. Neva Ritimano doing the news on camera. They've got weather. It is like and I'm actually not being disparaging because it is, but like a budget version of AM or a breakfast television show. Because I guess with this internet now, like we are as well, we are a budget version of what a panel show would have used to have been on TV. And this is sort of, I guess, the next step. It'll be interesting to see the resource they put in and the payoff they get for it, whether it's financial or whether it's, owning another sector of the news media site, whether it's numbers, whether they're drawing a new audience. So we'll keep an eye on that as we watch more of it. But today we're just going to play a couple of clips with Ryan talking to David Seymour, because of course he does ask David Seymour about the RSB, and we will get to that. So without further ado, let us first of all just get, because I can see there's already 9 chats that have been started, so let's just get to these first because they won't fall too far behind. NZ Random says, let's see your pukana patch. Sounds a bit rude, doesn't it? A pukana patch. Tiffany says, slightly late fee, should try get kneecap on. I'd love to get kneecap on. Don't worry, Fano, RSB opens for submissions now. Let's all get our submissions in to kick Seymour's vanity project to the curb. It'd be interesting though, Chewie, and I don't mean this kind of in a defeatist way, but will submissions really make any difference? I mean, if they've got it as in the government agreement, the difference it can make is to make our voices heard, but will it make any difference to whether they pass it or not? Unless we can get to Winston. Unless we can get to Winston.
So I watched some of the speeches. Okay, so it's part of the coalition agreement that the coalition supports it to its first reading.
Yeah.
So they've done that now.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. There were a couple of speeches from some MPs, which was like, with suspicion, we support this. So I don't think he has everybody on board.
Yeah.
And I don't think they can ignore it if we get a result like we did for the Treaties Principles Bill, which was like almost 90% opposed.
So those public voices could impact the other guys, not the ACT group, but maybe New Zealand First, maybe National. That's who we're aiming at, basically.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think this is so out the gate. And remember, this is the 4th time around that he's tried to get this bill through. He said that he will keep trying until he gets it. So this needs to be roundly, authoritatively beaten. And he knows that the Treaty Principles Bill motivated a lot of people. And I think despite all of the dirty tricks he's used, like having that framing website up at the end of last year, which a lot of people may have been convinced that they've already made a submission on this.
Yeah.
But it wasn't part of it was just how we're going to frame this. And he's already gone, oh yeah, no, we read like 2% of the submissions and they're of low quality and we didn't bother past them. That showed his attitude. That's got to piss a lot of people off. Te Pāti Māori's going hard on this. Greens are going hard on us. We're going to go hard on this. Everybody knows what an existential threat it is. It is just a case of like, we have 28 days to make sure we activate as many people as possible. We're our own little echo chamber. We're all doing it. But make sure you tell people why this is bad. Moana's just put out a great video on YouTube an hour ago about it. And it's only 12 minutes long. So if you want to put that in front of people, great way to do it.
Or Tanya.
Obviously,
or Tanya from
Mahirangi
Thursday.
Forbes. Yep. Absolutely.
Tanya
our
Waikato,
video with Tanya.
Yep.
Giving a little run through of just why it's such a dangerous bill.
Yeah.
Put them out there. Put them in front of your friends and family's eyeballs. We have to beat this.
Yeah. And it just reminds me as well, actually, Tanya Waikato, obviously lawyer, Te Pāti Māori lawyer, messaged me over the weekend wanting the footage so that they could use it for something, and I forgot about it. So I've literally just put it uploading into the drive now to send to her. So Tanya's going to be putting our footage out there to people saying this is what the RSB is all about. So very easy. Maybe I should pin that to my Twitter feed. In fact, I will. I'll pin that to my Twitter feed so it's easy to find. Obviously, it's on YouTube, easy to find. You can. It's less than 5 minutes to question what is the RSB, and it does it all. Right, there's 3 clips in total from the actual kind of 15-minute conversation about the RSB, but the one, what is the RSB? Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, send that to people. Because it's fucking terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying if it kind of got through.
Everything about it is the Dirty Tricks playbook, even down to the name, the Regulatory Standards Bill. Very dry balls. Why would anybody be interested in it? You know, let's hide how dangerous it is.
Yeah.
That's where he's operating.
Yep. I am just going to stop my live feed from showing on my live feed because I thought I'd just go and have a look on YouTube right now, just to show people exactly where it is, because this is our feed. Speaking, there's an RSB one there. Dun, 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 dun. I put it out quite early. I know I did because I went, there we go. What actually is the Regulatory Standards Bill? 4 minutes and 52 seconds, right there.
Mm-hmm.
What actually is the Regulatory Standards Bill? Get in there, share it around, information you need to know. Right, let's get going, let's get going with finishing some of these because Wahiki says, can we get Marilyn Waring on to talk about the People's Select Committee, please? Absolutely. I don't know if you saw that tonight, Chewie, but there's a private citizen select committee to look at the Equal Pays Act. And I tell you what, I watched it on the news tonight and I went, this is really bad for National because this is going to keep it in the headlines. I hope they don't have their little select committee until like February of next year, and that'll be an election year, and they will be reminded. And I don't know personally Sue Bradford, but I've done quite a bit with her in radio and stuff, so I've still got her details, and she's one of the ones on there as well. Maybe I'll try and get a hold of her or Marilyn or someone. But yeah, it's the wheels are falling off. Whānau.
It's truly a cross-party, and they're not current MPs; they're all former MPs, but cross-party committee. But the fact that it's led by a former National MP who was knighted for services to women and the economy, it's a heavy hitter.
Yeah. All right, let's just do a couple more of these. We won't do all the super chats now. We'll come back to us. We'll be here all night because you're very generous. I'm wondering about Chewie's Palestinian flag, Aro Hanui. Chewie, any thoughts? Anything to tell?
I keep leaving it in the boot of my car from protest actions here in Dunedin.
There you go.
It's a good. Really should remember to bring it in.
It's a good reason it's not there, Whānau. Kiwi Bird said it's kicked David Seymour season again. Late fee, sorry, doing business things. Oh, okay, doing business things.
Big business says, portfolio.
You know, it's the alt reality when Piers fucking Morgan admits it's a genocide and starts talking sense. I can feel the boogaloo brewing. Yeah, look, we'll get onto that in a little while, but there's a mix between why have you taken so long and welcome to the correct side of history. I'm reticent to say, fuck you, it took too long, because I don't know how I operate. I'm not also going, yay, it's all is forgiven. I think somewhere in the middle is probably the appropriate thing, like finally, you're finally coming to the right side of history, as opposed to too much celebration.
I tell you where mine's at, where when someone does that, right, is like, okay, cool, you're finally here. You have a lot of catching up to do.
Now what? That's it. Now what? Now what? So now if Morgan doesn't use his platform for, talking of the attempted elimination of a people, if that's not his but that's not a major feature from here on in, it'll be hollow. So now what? Now you've come to the right side. Now what are you going to do with your platform about it? Okay, let's go to NZME. NZME have started a new show. It's called My Left Beard or something like that. No, Herald Now is what it's called. And we're just going to show a little bit of this. It'll give you a bit of a vibe for what the show is. It's just it's a podcast. It's what it is. It's a podcast with a few flasher titles because they've got some money to put into it. But whatever. We're going to start with a conversation around pay equity. And Seymour says a really interesting thing in here about what we really need to do is catch up with Australia. No shit, Sherlock.
Was the ACT Party.
Look, I was around the Cabinet Committee table in 2015, 2016, when this whole pay equity idea came out of the Terra Nova case. I said it was wrong then, and it's wrong now.
Because they tried to claim a bit of credit.
Well, it's
national.
wrong. The simple question is this. I saw people who are supposedly working. They said, we're working on...
I'm sorry about... I know this is not the subject matter, but we're talking about this new show. It looks pretty good. I mean, camera angles and stuff, technically wise, it certainly looks the part before anything else.
Pay equity claims. Well, newsflash, folks, that's not work. If we're going to have a society where we try and go forward by arguing with each other in court about who should get paid how much based on some crazy comparison, I can tell you we're not going to catch Australia, and that's the real pay equity gap we should be trying to close.
Now, I agree, Mr. Seymour. So what I suspect now is if that's the pay equity gap we're trying to get, I'm assuming there's a huge salary increase coming for nurses and for police officers, because you're the government and you pay some of these industries and you're saying we need to bridge the gap with Australia. So much like we just said about Morgan, so what are you going to do about that now? Because I'm sorry, trickle-down economics doesn't work for a doctor or a nurse. That works for people who are struggling the most. But we agree with you about catching up to Australia, but you can do that with a stroke of a pen, Mr. Seymour. So will you put your quill where your mouth is and close the gap on wages between Australia and New Zealand with the salaries you have control over? Sorry, Chewie.
I would only assume that Comrade Seymour here is talking about strengthening the unions, increasing penalty rates, changing our tax brackets, adding capital gains tax.
Yep.
All of those good things.
All the things that they have in Australia.
Absolutely turbocharge us catching up with Australia. But you can't pick one thing from Australia and not the other things.
Yeah. And I'm not going to
try and do.
I'm not going to criticise Ryan Bridge on the first time we've seen him since he left AM. that would feel a little bit mean, but that's the obvious question that's not being asked. So what are you doing, Mr. Seymour, to bridge that gap with the Australian wage difference? Okay, so let's take that as read. If I agree with you, I agree with you. So what are you doing, Mr. Seymour, to bridge that gap? And the answer is fucking nothing. Next question. We're talking about RSB. It's a good segue here for Mr. Bridge. The RSB is going to cost $20 million a year, but as far as we know, there has been no modelling, no expert advice, nothing released as to what it's going to return us. So we know it's going to cost us, but what's it giving us back, KPI government? What's it going to bring back to us?
The Regulatory Standards Bill. Now, I think we need to look at this a little bit more. So $20 million, this is from Kate McNamara at the Herald. I'm sure you've seen this story. $20 million a year it's going to cost us, and there is no estimate on the monetary benefit from doing this. What is the value? What is the benefit?
Great question. Yeah, great question.
Very good question.
Yeah, great question.
Well, just a minute ago, you were talking about the
answer the fucking question. Come on. Don't go. Answer the question.
There.
Financial statements, the economic and fiscal updates that have come out, and the amount of growth that's coming out of that. Now, someone could say, how much does it cost to produce the government's accounts every year? Tens of millions. What's the benefit of doing that? Well, simply that New Zealand is...
Whataboutism to the max. You know what? If it costs tens of billions, sure. Okay, now what is the RSB going to return us? This is the thing I talked about last week, where the interviewer needs to go, we can address your subject, your diversion there to another point, but I'd still like you to ask my point. Given that there's tens of billions of costs otherwhere, what is this still going to make us? Like, what is this going to make us? What are the numbers?
Can see what their politicians are up to and decide how to vote. We don't do that for regulation. We don't have a real transparency.
So this is talking point. This is talking point about small government, but no answer.
Around
but
who
one's
is putting what
quantitative, one's qualitative, isn't it? I mean, they're different things.
No, they're not. For example, I'll give you this question. You're very close to politics. Can you tell me who's the politician responsible for the earthquake regulations that have cost this country tens of...
How does that answer the question of what's the RSB going to earn us? How does that answer the question?
Earthquake regulations cost New Zealand.
Yeah,
right.
well, it's next.
We shouldn't have any then. We shouldn't have any.
Yeah, there's a debt in the ledger, obviously, that Nick Smith did. But what he's saying is, wow, look at all this money that it cost us. And a way of kind of going, so why do you need to know? You didn't know about Nick Smith, so why do you need to know about this? That's not the point. I mean, as I said, Ryan Bridge, day one, give him a break. But good question, weak follow-up.
Billions in the last decade.
I don't know. Who was it?
It was Nick Smith. He got away scot-free. We need to shine a light on...
He got away scot-free. That's the phrase you use when someone's committed a crime, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Are you saying that
costs
Nick
of
Smith
regulation
should be in jail?
Well, most of the ACT MPs seem to think that other MPs should be in jail when they don't agree with them. So maybe so. Maybe so.
On the red tape and the regulation being put on people in this country.
But that's what Parliament, that's the function of Parliament. That's the function of an election, right?
Totally agree. But just like Parliament and elections require fiscal accounts to be able to judge the government spending, We need to put more transparency on the red tape and the regulation.
At $20 million a year, and you cannot say what the benefits will be.
Well, the benefit is a total change in government culture.
But a dollar benefit. I mean, it's like Labor with well-being. They said, oh, we're going to make a well-being budget. We're going to measure everything against well-being. It was all wishy-washy, and nothing came out of it.
Let me give you another figure.
What's funny, you've given us 3 figures, none of which were the figures to the question that was asked. Can you just at least, I only want one figure, Mr. Seymour. I just want the figure that's the answer to my question, that's all.
Amount of money spent on policy analysis in government each year is $870 million. That's all the people making red tape.
Only $1 billion. I'd like that fact checked, please. I'd like that fact checked. Basically, yeah, that sounds high to me. I'd like that fact checked.
And regulation. We want to put some transparency on that so voters can identify which politician is making bad laws that is holding back my life. Because red tape, look.
Which politician is making bad laws to hold back their lives while we're asking you about the law you're making and a question you're not answering. So come on, dude. You want us to have like a clear look at all these politicians and to be able to say, this is what they're costing me. At the same time, you're being asked a question about your legislation, what it's going to cost me, and you're not answering the fucking question.
It adds cost to the things you do. It means people say no to projects they would have otherwise done because they've been burnt by the cost before. And over time, it erodes our whole culture because we find ourselves tied up in red tape instead of achieving it. I think some decent transparency around that through the regulatory standards book is worth it.
Right, that's number 2. Chewie, you want to jump in on that at all? I've had a bit of say in there.
Yeah, look,
one more quick one to go, but that's it for now.
Ryan, my brother in Christ, welcome to the world of podcasting. let me just point out,
solidarity with your brother.
You are not hustling for an ad break. So if he doesn't answer a question, you can just hammer him on.
And there's no,
just
and
go,
there's
can
no
I get an answer to that question?
And Ryan, there's no broadcasting standards. Just answer the fucking question, David.
So you can call him a cunt.
Hey,
no,
sorry.
But this is the thing. This is the thing that all of these mainstream broadcasters haven't got yet, is that the restrictions that they had when they were doing TV stuff, as far as timing, and you can ask 4 questions and then we're in and out. You don't have that. You can just have him there until he answers the question in a way that you're happy with. You can edit it up later. It's fine.
Or leaves. Yeah. Answers the question or leaves. Because, I mean, I agree with you, but, I mean, not in David's defense, but in the reality, David might have 15 minutes before he has to go. But that's if you make him leave if he doesn't answer the question. Just keep ask it, and you make him leave. One last question as well. This is really interesting, Chewie. We've had some, obviously David Longy is the main one we think of, but some amazing New Zealanders represent New Zealand at the Oxford debate. Well, this hologram of a man is going to be doing an Oxford debate next year. And I want him to lose so badly. So badly. Because if you haven't heard yet, Whānau, you wait till you see what the moot is.
Union debate. David, your moot or your theme is no one can be illegal on stolen land.
No one can be illegal on stolen land. Therefore, if the land has been stolen, anyone can get access. No one can be illegal. That's the moot. And I want him to lose so badly.
Which side are you arguing for?
So I'm against that. I'm saying that actually a state does have the right to tell people if they can or cannot migrate because our land is not stolen. If you want to say that everyone is guilty for every past sin, which is what we hear all the time, we're never going to move forward. My view is if you have a state that observes the rule of law, that treats people well, that's transparent, as we mentioned.
Yeah, but what if the rule of law specifically talks to redressing grievances? So we do have a state that observes the rule of law, and part of the rule of law in this state has an addressing of grievances of the past for things like stolen land. They're not mutually exclusive. You don't have like a state under rule of law, but it doesn't address those things in the past. And the other thing, sorry, Chewie, the other thing is what he's basically saying is if I nick your dad's house and then your dad passes away, well, that was in the past. Sorry, nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do about it. Your dad died yesterday. We don't stolen land from the past. Nothing you can do about it. Like, let's say you had that you were squatting in someone's property, and then they passed away, and they wanted to pass it on to their kids. Sorry, don't look into the past. We don't do it that way. I know it's a 200-year difference, but really, where's then the line? Chewie, you anything?
It's an excellent reason for squatting David Seymour's apartment and not getting out. No, look, I love that he says, like, I believe the state should set up laws and that sort of thing as long as they follow the rule of law and is transparent. Sorry, I'm trying to slur as much as he is. As if the state is always fair dealing. Yeah. As if the state never bends the rules for its own benefit. As if the state has never signed a document or, say, a treaty.
Oh, treaty.
To get a foothold, and then when they have the numbers, fucking ignore it for 60, 80, 100 years.
Yeah.
You know, and continue to breach that with a change of government. You know, it's almost like he's defending a position that seems very close to what he's afraid of here. So, yes, I agree, Pat. I want to see him beaten within an inch of his life in a debating metaphorically debating thing. But he's always had this debate club smarmy president persona.
Yep.
And I want to see him eat it.
Wow, maybe we should try. If they live stream that, it's in June. It's June the 5th. That's terrible. We're in Auckland. Oh crap! I was about to say, if it's live stream, mind you, if we were in Auckland, it's live stream at like 7 a.m. Maybe we can do a special around the laptop or something. All right, let's get the last 30 seconds of this. Remember, the moot is no one can be illegal on stolen land.
Then actually that is a legitimate state, and it can tell people they can't migrate here.
That was quite long-winded. Have you got a uranium moment up your sleeve? Have you thought about it?
I tell you what, sometimes the best jokes just happen. So
how would he know that? Like, seriously, how would this thing know anything about the best jokes just happening? Does any come to mind? Any whatsoever? Anything? Like, for example,
David thinks he's a comedian.
Blowing up the Pacific People's, ministry?
Just a joke.
Just a joke?
Just a joke.
All right.
I suspect Longy didn't plan it either.
Don't you reckon?
Well, maybe.
I read in someone else's book that he had planned that one, but anyway, you've got plenty of time anyway. When is it?
It's 5th of June. 5th of June. 6th of June our time.
Are we paying to get you there?
No, I'm not spending a penny of taxpayer money on this.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, good on him. Give him credit for that. One little thing. Fine. If it's a personal thing, it's a personal thing. Look, the 5th, so the 6th here. Honestly, whānau, if it is a funny time that we can, I'd be keen, Chewie. We just sit on the couch with a camera and watch it and stream it. Interesting. Although the flip side of that is obviously we'll be back on the Monday afterwards to be able to react to it. Because if it's the 6th, it's a Friday anyway. Maybe we could just leave it to Bright Hero News. Bright Hero News might want to do it. Chewie, your thoughts, your vibes, your comments around that, or are we going to do some more super chats because they are loading up?
Look, I find it really interesting that these mainstream news organisations are treading into sort of similar to what we do. I found that quite interesting anyway. We've talked about Duncan Garner's show and the platform and all of this sort of stuff as I guess a new normal in New Zealand news media coalesces maybe. And I think I made a joke about Ryan Bridge not realizing he doesn't have to rush for a commercial, but once these guys work it out, it could be a really good thing. Do I trust the Herald to do a good job? No. Do I trust Ryan Bridge to do a good job? No. But it's interesting to see how it develops. These guys have money that obviously we don't have. They have access in a way that we don't have either. Do I think what we do is better and more informative? A lot of the time, yes. And we're doing it for no money.
Let's have a look, just to look at the numbers. So that episode at just before 9 o'clock when I set up that clip to play had under 7,000 views for that episode. So that's kind of twice what we get on an average episode. We get more than that on some, but on an average episode, we get kind of 3,500 views. And we've got 17,000 subscribers. They've got 180,000. So they've got more than 9 times our subscribers, and they've got double the viewership.
But that's not specifically for this new show, right? This is for
that's the Herald. NZ Herald's got 180,000. Yeah.
So
So I mean, look,
straight away, they put it in front of a lot of people's eyeballs, but they haven't built it on the backs of this product.
and I'm sure this will enrage those right wingers who pretend to be free speech. The comments are turned off. Comments are turned off, Chewie. Chewie, the comments are turned off. What does that mean?
It means that the audience watching this is some of the most septic people on the planet. That's what that means.
Nick says, can I sneak a topic re 1.7 PA econ boost? Foreign-owned corps invest in AI and automation so they can cut staff. Do we want to subsidize this? Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I'm playing it, but in the conversation with Nikki Noboats over the weekend, she just said flat out, like, if profits go offshore, that's fine, because if it pays people to work here and it generates income for people here, that's all good. I am paraphrasing,
so
but
small thinking.
yeah. But like I say, what if it's a business using technology that doesn't employ 500 people? It employs one person and 40 people in the country that the place is sourced out of. It's like, yeah, maybe. Tiffany says subs won't change it, but it's a receipt of the crime. What are we
That's
talking about?
the RSB, like submissions.
Submissions won't change it.
Won't change it.
It's a very interesting way and a good way to put it out. Receipt of the crime. Yeah, well done. It's in the ballot on the RSB first reading. All government MPs other than Seymour were about 1 minute long seat warmer speeches, even New Zealand versus Casey Costello. JC and the Pigeon Cats. In addition to your submission, deliver a personalised copy to your local COC MP, Coalition of Chaos, I'm assuming that still stands for. Put local pressure on them. Also remind Winston of his anti-neoliberalism speech when he formed a government with Labour back in the day.
Winston won't remember that.
He
won't remember.
Doesn't remember yesterday, does he, to be honest? 8 Vasta. Bravo to the Chewie backer.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you very
just
much.
a random niceness to you, Chewie. Does Seymour a-hole get jealous of the shit? I like that. So Seymour's asshole get jealous of the shit his mouth keeps spewing. That's not.
I have a theory on this.
Yes.
I think that David Seymour's nether regions is like a Ken doll. He has neither
Stop.
penis
Stop.
or butthole.
Stop. Campbell says David must love sugar because his mouth was full of waffle. Gagging, going for it. Tiffany can't go a day not being a settler colonial. You can say that. It's like cunt with a K. Yeah, that's fine. You can say that. I was going to say to you, I never brought this up last week. You might have seen me react during that story. I was going to tangent into a cunt conversation. The thing about being so offended about that word, that the 18 and 19-year-olds call everything cunty. Oh, you're looking cunty tonight. It's actually a term.
It serves cunt.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I forgot about it last week, but me saying that in front of my mother, she would have been shocked. But my 18-year-old is like, looking pretty cunty tonight, Dad. I'm like, oh, okay, this has a different resonance for this generation than it does the last few. That's for sure.
Now, since you have tangent into a comment about a distraction, can I just very briefly mention another distraction going on at the moment?
Sure.
Someone dared to comment about Nicola Willis's budget outfit. The fact that apparently it was like a British designer rather than any. So the Herald's gone out and found a designer that has said basically it would have been good if she wore a New Zealand designer. This has become this thing, and everybody, and now they're asking about it, and she's getting really like put out by it. Like comments about my outfit are so 1950s, and it's like, bitch, like nobody cares. Like honestly,
this is the only thing that I
cares.
care about. The only thing I care about with that conference, I didn't have a clue about that. I saw a clip on it today. Someone else talking about it.
Oh. Bishops rode in on a white horse to defend her. It's so obviously a tactic.
This is the only thing I care about that subject, which is nothing. If the same people defending her were the ones who had a attack at Materia Ture when she wore a jacket that wasn't deemed the correct jacket for her to be wearing, then I call hypocrisy. But the actual conversation around that was just, It was horse shit.
It's dumb.
Remember that?
It's dumb.
This
There's
is
so
a
much to criticise about the budget.
Yeah.
Without, like, it barely registered that Nicola Willis was wearing a blue dress, and of course she was. It's her day in the sun. She's a national MP. Of course she's going to wear blue. That's it. Yeah. That is the end of it. But they're spinning an outrage story out of it.
Yeah. We don't need to talk about it anymore, though, because we don't want to add to it. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. Tiffany says David Seymour is the joke. Why Hickey 12? My tupuna were made landless through Raupatu confiscation of iwi. Our iwi are still bearing the intergenerational consequences. David Seymour, showing his white privilege. Yeah, look, it's. I've said this before. When I used to talk to people on ZB about this, and they'd say, "Oh, you know," and I'd say, "Well, if your grandfather in Ireland had his farm confiscated off him for the defence from the Jerrys, and then the government just kept it, and today it was worth £10 million, would you want a slice?" And they'd go, "No," and I'd go, "Liar," because of course you would. Of course you would. Of course.
When we talk about the income disparity between Europeans and Māori, it almost always circles back to land confiscation. Because it was taken away during the land wars, and then it was sold off to white settlers who built farms on 99-year leases and built this country into what it was, selling products made on those lands overseas, but trillions and trillions of dollars over the last 150 years.
Yeah,
and that was not bought; it was stolen.
Certainly if you also make it into today's money, like imagine what they were making in 1950 if you adjusted for inflation.
Because that was empire. That's what empires do.
Kiwi says the answer to David's argument is call the police. And finally, for this section, gold offshoring profits should be taxed at the 90% mark. If you don't like it, pay your staff, fund charities, and invest the profits back into the country. I really like that, Gold. That's a really good idea. That's a really good idea. Okay, we're going to keep trucking because, like I said, we got a lot. And this is, I enjoyed this a lot. I saw this, I talked about this on Thursday night, but obviously because of the budget, we didn't focus on it. And I'm sure many of you have seen it, but for the ones who haven't, you will enjoy this. The first thing we're going to see, Chewie, is Piers Morgan coming to the light side, admitting it and coming to the light side.
Get into this. Mehdi, welcome back to Uncensored. Listen, you and I have talked about this war in Gaza for ever since it started, this phase of the 75-year conflict. And I have resisted going as far as you have done in your criticism of the Israeli government. I resist no more. I think we've reached common ground about what we view is happening and has been happening through this period of this blockade, which frankly is just starvation of the people there, including so many innocent young women and children. And I think that the incessant bombing and killing, and we don't know how many civilians have been killed, but it is on a daily basis. It looks like hundreds of people every day, with no apparent attempt, it seems to me, to have any real plan for how this ends or what happens when it ends, other than if you look at what Smodrich has been saying, probably the most right-wing member of a very right-wing government, he is talking in a genocidal language about kicking all the Palestinians out. So I think you and I have reached a place in the last few weeks where we are in agreement. But
there you go. He goes on to ask a question there. That's just the setup. There's two other clips I want to play. They're not very long, but they are Mehdi Hasan at his finest. Yeah, I do have that kind of, someone said Darth Vader. It's like Darth Vader saving Luke Skywalker from, who was the name? Was it Emperor?
Palpatine.
Palpatine, is that who it was? And I don't think we should be ungracious to to now say, well, fuck you, you took so long. But what we should do is be cautious. It's a little bit like when the government does something we support. We're going, yeah, that's a good move to make government, but we still don't trust you. Like all the other things, we still don't trust you. Piers Morgan has been historically bad on Trump and graded him on a curve. He's been pretty good on most international things, on Russia and Ukraine. But as we see with many conservative right-wingers, Israel seems to be the thing that enables them to ignore their consistency in maybe some other areas when it comes to things like free speech and that. he says he's moved across, and I think it's gone. I didn't mark it, but I think someone in the chat just said he's now on a 90-day trial, which I think is fair. Let's see what you now do in the next 90 days, Piers. What are your thoughts, Chewie?
I saw another comment. So the chat's moving so fast, so I didn't get a chance to star it. But Piers's comments there of like, I think we've finally arrived in the same place. And it was a perfect opportunity for Mehdi to say, motherfucker, I haven't moved.
Yeah, I'm still
I'm in the same place as day one. You have arrived to me.
Yeah.
But yes, it's one of those things, and we will see people, like we've seen this happen in the US with Trump supporters finding out that Trump actually isn't there for them. And we are going to have this as people realize what a bad government this is that the first human reaction is to go, I fucking told you so.
Yeah.
When it should be, welcome, you have a lot of time to make up here.
Yeah, I think I actually quite like what you're saying there, Chewie, because I think that if, people, I mean, just think we've used it politically, right? Let's think about, most people watching are probably okay, and I'll say the word, with a vaccine. I know that some people don't like that word, but are okay with it. When someone who isn't comes over and goes, I was wrong, you don't go, back you go. When a literal flat earther finally acknowledges that the globe is a globe, you don't kick him to the curb. But because this is so serious, right? This is not believing a theory that's wrong on the flat earth. This is ignoring a genocide of people for the past, 2.5 years, 18 months, 2.5 years? For
That's
so
a
long
time
that I forgot.
For someone that's in the media.
Yeah.
There's someone that's in the media and has the resources and the context that he has.
Yeah.
He has taken a very long time to arrive there.
Yeah.
So what is he going to do with his enormous platform now?
That's what it's about.
He's going to stand up and amplify exactly how the Zionist state has misled him for 2 years. Show us the lies.
Yeah.
Like lots of us have already seen them and identified the lies, but lots of them will still be further down the trail than from where he is now, of going, no, this is justified. The Israeli state doesn't lie to me. And it's all because of October 7th and nothing happened before that. What is Piers going to do to bring people to where he is now?
Yeah. Because he's got the platform. He's got the platform. He doesn't really have the voice because, the new expert, the new person is not the expert, but he's got the platform, and it'll be interesting to see. He's had a lot of, blood on the floor debates with this in the last couple of years, where he has typically sided with the Zionist more. I'm wondering, will we see those debates disappear? Because then he doesn't have to side with the Palestinian side, or if he's consistent, will we see those debates, and often those debates are a show, continue, and then we'll see what he's got to say. So I like what you've said, Chewie. I think congratulations, welcome to the light side. We are 40 miles into the marathon. You're on the start. Look forward to you catching up. That sort of thing. Do your best to catch up.
And again, just to really hammer this point, we're using Piers as an analogy here for the people in our lives that might catch up with us at some point, whether that's on a more local issue like what this government is doing. Maybe they don't think it's so bad. They'll catch up with you eventually. Just be there.
Now we've got 2 more clips. As I said, they're just first one's a couple of minutes, second one's only a minute. But Mehdi Hasan, who we worship like the deity we shouldn't. When he speaks and he gets on a roll like this, it's just fascinating to know how anyone can challenge him, because he comes with the receipts. So this is a clip with Mehdi Hasan talking about actually what all the experts are saying, the experts in genocide are saying is.
The killing is ongoing, the starvation is ongoing, And look, I do hope that a dam is bursting. You mentioned the genocide word. Shmuel Lederman, who is an Israeli researcher of genocide, spent much of 2024 saying it's not a genocide, it's not a genocide. He was interviewed by a Dutch newspaper last week. He said, I've changed my position. It is a genocide. He said, in my field, there's a consensus among genocide scholars that it's a genocide. In fact, that Dutch newspaper interviewed 7 leading scholars of genocide. Every single one said, we think what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. In fact, this week, Piers, you have an Israeli former general, Yair Golan, saying a sane country does not attack civilians, does not kill babies as a hobby, and does not expel civilian populations. That is Yair Golan, the former deputy chief of the Israeli military.
And see the tall streak of weasel's piss on the right-hand side? Shaking his head, shaking his head. It's like, and as you would expect, I'm not showing much of him, but at no stage during any of this interview does he rebut anything Mehdi said. He comes out with his own IDF points, but he doesn't rebut anything that Mehdi says.
Because he can't.
Prominent Israeli politician. He was a hero on October the 7th, fought Hamas himself on October the 7th. This is what he said this week.
Okay, John Spencer, you've been kind of pulling a lot of faces there. You obviously don't agree. But given that so many...
How? Sorry. How can you disagree that the majority of genocide scholars say something when the majority of genocide scholars say something? The only way you can disagree is actually the majority of genocide scholars don't say that, and they do. So what's the disagreement?
Many allies of Israel are now raising massive alarm bells.
So this is something else Piers is going through, and he did it in this conversation. He now talks about all the countries, like the UKs, all the countries that are now basically telling Israel too much now as well. So you could also say that maybe...
Like Winston. Winston was the tipping point.
Maybe Piers is being a little bit cowardly. He's following along with kind of other world leaders, but it seems to be a movement. And very shortly, if it's not there already, all that there's going to be is Israel and the US and no one else supporting Israel in the actions they're taking in this particular context.
What is happening? You can't be comfortable, surely, with what is going on in Gaza, are you?
Absolutely not. I think it's horrible. I think there are people suffering. I just am not misinformed on who is the cause of that suffering, that it isn't Israel, that war isn't a crime. War should be avoided at all costs.
Well, war isn't a crime.
Fucking hell. That
unless it's a war crime. War is not a crime unless it's a war crime. Wars can be criminal. And this is it. And what you're going to hear him say is going, well, I just know who's the ones to blame. Again, no rebuttal.
And Israel did that. And this war didn't start 75 years ago. This war started on October 7th when Hamas invaded Israel and tried to destroy and actually did genocidal acts. I agree that there's a lot of suffering happening in Gaza, and it's the list of people who are responsible.
Well, you're not aware, Chewie. This guy's an expert in war. That's what he does. He's an expert. So he's an expert in war.
Israel's not on it in my list. Hamas is on it, and I actually have solutions.
Sorry, I cut that off. We should probably hear what he just says then about where he lays the blame.
I agree that there's a lot of suffering happening in Gaza, and it's the list of people who are responsible. Israel's not on it in my list. Hamas is on it, and I actually have solutions.
So the list of responsibility does not include Israel. So nothing that Israel's done, they have no responsibility. None whatsoever. Just to remind you, when we've talked to people from the alternative Jewish voices, Marilyn Garson, one of the points she pointed out, which sticks with me, is that Gaza the Palestinians have no ground defense, ground to air defense. So the Israeli helicopters and fighter jets just literally come and hover, fly around, come as low as they want to, pick a target, boom. That's the quote unquote, I'm getting as close to the camera as I can, war we're talking about. That's the war we're talking about. But according to this guy, Israel, they've got no complicity. They've got no fault, Israel. Nothing to do with them.
You asked Mehdi for a solution. I have solutions based on the history of war. Number one solution is to encourage Egypt to open the gate that they control.
There's that whole history of war.
No, I'm a student of war history. Okay, so there was absolutely no need to fight the Nazis. Just people needed to open their borders so the populations of the countries that the Nazis wanted could move on to a new country. That would stop war. Why we've never done that.
But remember as well, Chewie, in the history of war, there was this thing called Nuremberg that held some people accountable for their actions. That's also a part of the history of war. When an international court finds you guilty of war crimes, that's also a part of the history of war, which could also be laid at the feet of this conflict. Certainly one side, one particular politician within this conflict.
What's also key here is what he said there. Like, Egypt should open its borders and take the Palestinians. Displacing a people, a whole people, to another country is literally a genocide. So there you go. His answer is the key to finishing this war is completing the genocide. Thank you.
So his answer is,
you look like a Q-tip.
They are not committing a genocide, and the solution to this is allowing
more
us to
genocide.
commit a genocide. Okay, we get to
More genocide.
The solution is to encourage Egypt to open the gate that they control and create a humanitarian zone. Let every woman, child, and elderly person out of Gaza, just like you and I have discussed in the past about Ukraine. 5 million women, children, elderly left Ukraine to escape Russia's evil bombardments. That could be done today. And
hey, Chewie, he doesn't realize that Israel's Russia in the example he's just given. Because it's Russia.
Yes.
It's Russia. It's Russia bombarding Ukraine that the Ukrainians having to run from. It's Israel bombarding Gaza that he's talking about, then Gaza can run. So he's not aware. He's basically saying we in this argument are Russia. He hasn't picked up on that in his little pointy head.
And it's criminal that it hasn't happened today. Now, Mehdi uses experts, although I thought, credentialism and expert theory was a bad thing today. I've been on the ground, although I've heard that that's a bad thing as well. And what's missing here is, again, which is why I was shaking my head, is that you believe, based on statements of politicians that are not the actual government and the decision makers of the institution, that Israel is intentionally causing this harm. That's false as well. Point the finger at Hamas, as you've said in the past, Piers, and I'm sorry we've lost you. Maybe you and I can go to Gaza because it's not true that
well, actually, it's interesting. I mean, look, just on that, John, look.
Yeah. And then they go on talking about how journalists can't get into Gaza. I've got one more clip. The last clip's only 60 seconds. We'll just roll straight into it, because this is Mehdi Hasan at his finest. I'll just say, I've written down Mehdi mic drop facts on genocide. Let's have a listen. 60 seconds.
I mean, I don't know how I can respond. So much gaslighting from the very beginning. John has been on the ground in Gaza, as an embed. I love it when John and Douglas Murray and these people say, oh, we've been on the ground in Gaza. Yeah, as guests of the Israeli military that's doing the killing, starving and maiming, and you've come back and done exactly what they wanted to do. You've done their propaganda for them. Journalists have not been allowed freely into Gaza. That's why every major media organization on planet Earth has said to the Israeli government, you must allow journalists in. The Palestinian...
The other point here that Mehdi could have made is that the independent journalists that are were on the ground in Gaza, every single one of them has been targeted by the IDF. Drone strikes, missile strikes, air strikes, snipers, tanks, the whole works. There's no one left to tell the truth.
to do. You've done their propaganda for them. Journalists have not been allowed freely into Gaza. That's why every major media organization on planet Earth has said to the Israeli government, you must allow journalists in. The Palestinian journalists who are there have been killed in record numbers. Of course, Piers, you're right. They want to hide what they're doing. That's why they're killing the journalists there and blocking the journalists from coming in.
Yes.
This idea that he's been on the
100%.
ground. Yeah, I did interview a doctor, a British plastic surgeon, Dr. Tom Patoka. And by the way, he wasn't in the European hospital because the hospital got bombed by Israel. So he was in another hospital, and he talked to me about how he has to treat patients who have maggots in their wounds. He has to treat patients without limbs. He has to treat children. I've interviewed multiple doctors on the ground in Gaza, actually in Gaza, not hanging around with Israeli military. And they've all said the same thing. American doctors, British doctors, Canadian doctors. They've all talked about how many kids they saw with sniper bullets to the head and chest. Israel does intentionally kill.
I know it's a bit graphic, Chewie, but just out of interest, what kind of gun does a sniper bullet come from?
Like a high-powered, accurate, very accurate rifle with a big scope on it.
Yeah, sniper rifle. And who in this conflict has the sniper rifles?
Oh, yes, right. I'm with you there. That would be Israel.
Yeah. Just
But these guys will post up. These guys will post up, and we know this because they're happy enough to put it on fucking social media. That's how sure they're going to get away with this. They will set up in a building and they will just shoot anything moving. Man, woman, child. And they have been doing this since way before October 7th.
Yeah.
And it's always an accident.
And Chewie, Mehdi does go into quite a lot of detail here, including we shouldn't believe our eyes when many of us, unfortunately, have seen footage of people coming out with a white flag getting gunned down. So on top of all the information that we hear from independent sources or from, peace organizations, what we also see with our own eyes, we also have to stop believing that as well.
With Israeli military, and they've all said the same thing. American doctors, British doctors, Canadian doctors, they've all talked about how many kids they saw with sniper bullets to the head and chest. Israel does intentionally kill civilians. That's why Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant were indicted at the International Criminal Court for precisely those charges, for willful killing of Palestinians, for murder and persecution. That's why they've been indicted. That's why every human rights group in the world says war crimes are being committed. They've killed people holding white flags. We've seen it with our own eyes. They've bombed buildings without warning with families inside, like the Al-Dos family that I often cite in October 2023. They've dropped 2,000-pound bombs on refugee camps full of hundreds of people.
One thing I learned about the 2,000-pound bombs, Chewie, the US Army would not use those in Vietnam because of the damage they did to the surrounding areas and the civilians it would kill. Except now my understanding is America is supplying Israel with 2,000-pound bombs. America wouldn't use them in Vietnam. I'm happy to be corrected if another country is supplying them, but I understand that America is supplying 2,000-pound bombs to Israel to use over Gaza. So that was obviously a war crime if they'd used them in Vietnam, and they acknowledged that, but they just give them to Israel, sell them to Israel to then
2,000-pound bomb is an enormous bomb.
It said something like it kills everyone within about 200 meters and damages most people within about 600 to 800 meters. So that's why they're basically a war crime, because you can't use them unless your enemy's in the middle of 6 rugby fields. You can't basically use them without damaging everyone within I think they said 1,000 yards. So,
and that is why Gaza looks the way it does now. It looks like the fucking moon because that's what they have been dropping willy-nilly.
Yeah.
As many justified criticisms of the US military that you can deliver over how they operated in Iraq, they did at least take a passing interest in minimizing collateral damage. So that's why they didn't use those bombs. Israel has no worries about it because they don't want a single building left standing in Gaza. They just want to bulldoze it all into the sea.
Yep. Let's let Mehdi get to the end of his epic, his own metaphorical bomb drop at the moment.
In October 2023, they've dropped 2,000-pound bombs on refugee camps full of hundreds of people. They have killed 7 aid workers in a clearly marked World Central Kitchen aid convoy. They've bombed World Food Programme convoys, leading to Cindy McCain, the wife of the most pro-Israeli senator of my lifetime, to come out and condemn Israel for attacking aid workers. John wants you to ignore Cindy McCain and British and American doctors and human rights groups and your own lying eyes watching people with white flags being gunned down. He wants you to believe him and his Israeli military minders.
There you go. And there is the end of the conversation forevermore, thanks to Mehdi Hasan. I don't think so, but if anyone else watched that, it feels like the end to me. There you go, Chewie. That's the end of my clip from Piers Morgan. As we've said, he's come to the light side. He's got a lot of catching up to do. It's almost like he's missed the first 3 terms of school. He's finally come to school in the 1st term, and now he's got all that work to catch up on to do the exams at the end of the year. Is that a good analogy? Are we okay with that?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that.
All right.
I'm
anything
just
you
trying to
want to add
find.
before
Yes.
Yep,
yes.
cool.
So I want to show people what a 2,000-pound bomb looks like as far as what it does. And bear in mind that Israel has been dropping these on tents as well. That's
Zoom it
small.
in as much as you can.
So there you go. You can see how deep the crater is and how big the crater is.
So the crater is, I mean, those men are going to be between 5'8" and 5'10", the tallest ones probably in Gaza, not a tall people. That if they stood in the middle of that, there's probably at least 1.5 of them. So it's probably a good 10 foot deep, I would guess, if you stood in the middle, maybe more.
That'd go through most multi-story concrete buildings.
Yeah.
And Israel's been happy to drop these in tents because they think one militant is in there. Like this is what they've been doing. And as someone that, you know, pays attention to military stuff and always has, the moment you hear someone slinging 2,000-pound bombs into densely populated cities, you're just like, oh, these guys do not give a single fuck what anybody thinks.
No fucks given. Terrifying. Mama Max says, if we don't think we can change people's minds, all of this is just political masturbation. We won't change minds if we beat them for doing so. Succinct, Mama. We'll take that. I think you can do that and say, look forward to your to seeing your wares now. Come and join the team. We're going to keep going, Chewie, because we've got Nikki No Boats. Unless there's anything you desperately want to get to and mention, there's one or two other things.
No, that is all good.
All right, let's just get into this because there's several clips here, and it's worth watching. We could have watched the full 26 minutes, which we're not going to do, obviously, but we could have. So let's have a look. We're going to have... So they called this the growth budget, Chewie. That was the name of this budget, the growth budget. Not the gross budget, like I heard some cheeky young whippersnappers say. The growth budget. So Jack wants to know from Nicola Willis, what that growth budget will achieve.
So let's look at what the growth budget is forecast to achieve at the moment. This is real GDP per capita forecast at the moment. And as you can see, pretty anemic growth for the foreseeable future. 191 New Zealanders are leaving every day to Australia. If this is the best that we can do off the back of a growth budget, why should they stay?
Because, Jack, these numbers tell you things are going to feel and be a lot better than they have in the past few years.
These numbers?
Yes, because, Jack, by contrast, we've been in negative numbers and we have had sky-high inflation. And so what this represents is a much brighter trajectory into the future. And do I want those numbers to go higher? Do I want to have policies
to go higher.
in subsequent
1.8,
budgets?
1.7, 1.4, that's it?
Yes, but you have to look at this in the context in which we've been, in which we have had negative per capita GDP position, highly negative. So the reason people have felt like they're going backwards is that in many cases they have been. So to be coming out of that...
GDP relative to being in a
that's
recession
right. So
is
to be coming out
positive.
of that and into healthy levels of per capita growth into the future, that's...
I mean, like, I'm not an expert in this, right? We should probably ask Craig about this. But if it's GDP growth, GDP is basically everything added in together. All of the wealth generated by every company, everything. And if it's 1.8%, surely that means my net increase would be 1.8% on average. Like, on average, that's what it's going to mean. And if that's the case, she's now sitting there saying everyone's going to notice a difference. Really? Of a 1.8% increase? So
33 cents raise in minimum wage. We're all going to notice that. 33 cents. Less than the cost of inflation. Or almost like it'll feel like we're going backwards.
I say this like, people sometimes just know enough to get them into trouble, and maybe that's me in the economy, but not enough to understand it fully. But if that's what it is no one's going to notice 1.8%. So either she's being disingenuous and she's not being honest, or this is typical growth for a country, and this is to be expected. Like, I should do the research. What is an average? Like, what's Australian growth in those 4-year periods? Maybe we could look that up while we're listening to the last 30 seconds of this.
It's going to feel remarkably different. That's going to feel like things get better this year, even better next year, and stay good into the years ahead.
and then don't get quite as good in the years afterwards, according to those Treasury forecasts that we just showed you.
We've got a few budgets between now and then, Jack.
So we compared the growth forecast with those in Australia. So today...
What? By a few, hopefully you mean one, is that right? Well, just out of interest, Australian annual growth 3.4%. Just so three times the amount.
Okay.
Just looking at it, I just Google. All I've Googled is Australian GDP growth, and it says 3.4% annual change. That was 2023 though. Like, there you go. So we know.
New Zealanders are about $25,000 per capita behind Australia in terms of GDP output. With your growth budget, comparing it to Australia's forecasts, 5 years from now, we're set to be $25,000 behind Australia. So you can call it a growth budget all you like, but on your forecast, this isn't meaningfully going to close the gap.
I think I get the point of your question, which is you're saying...
I have to say, she was so patronising so many times in this interview. You're asking the right question, Jack. This was one of those moments. I think I understand your question. Now how can I spin the answer?
Isn't meaningfully going to close the gap.
I think I get the point of your question, which is you're saying, should we be...
The point of the question is, what the fuck is the growth? What's the growth you're talking about? That's the point of the question.
...doing more to grow our economy? And my answer to that would be yes.
How can you call it a growth budget when it doesn't close the gap with Australia?
Because in
to
the
whom we're losing
absence of the
191
policy-
New Zealanders a day.
Because in the absence of the policy choices we've made, you would be seeing less growth in these forecasts. If we took the approach some of my political opponents are promoting, which
blame Labor,
is to slap more taxes on this economy, more heavy borrowing, that would threaten growth. And what I've been absolutely emphasising for New Zealanders, this is an economic recovery we're forecasting. Do not take it for granted. Alternative policy choices would put it at risk.
So let's...
Chewie, happy to hear your thoughts, sir, if you have any.
I mean, this whole segment is really speaks for the whole of the interview, really. Our finance minister, the person that is setting this budget, is so woefully the wrong person to have anything to do with their finances.
Yeah.
Like, she's got all the catchphrases. It's all perfectly well rehearsed, but it's ideological and it's not based in fact. And also, when she compares what has been done, what Labor's done, it is never mentioned in the context of the economy that they were operating in.
Yeah.
That it was the pandemic and fucking everything went out the window. But then when she gets criticised on how she's operating, well, you know, I'm operating in the economy that is part of the world and I can't do anything about it. Like, she doesn't give Labor that grace. She expects it weirdly in return. It's bizarre. But for her to say that we will notice things getting better when minimum wage is going up less than inflation, when the banks and the supermarkets and the landlords are still generating truly gross, and I mean that in both senses of the word, gross profits, offensive levels of profits, while our wages are being suppressed by this government. They want us scared. They want the labour market flooded, not enough jobs to go round, because that's great. Nobody wants to rock the boat. She correctly, somehow, identifies that a big problem with the New Zealand economy is productivity. Has she done anything to encourage further productivity short of welcoming foreign investors? No. Domestic productivity is tied up in housing because it's a tax black hole. Everybody can see the obvious thing, that if you've got money and you want to make that into a bigger number, you buy houses, buy and sell houses. That's how we do it. We're not investing in local businesses, ideas. We're not growing our own stuff. We don't know how to get out of this tailspin we've created. So let's just make it really permissive for wealthy people to come in. The stuff that she is promoting as growing productivity is untested, and Treasury's best figures is that it might do 0.6% to our economy. She's spending hundreds of billions of dollars to get there. It is unhinged.
Chewie, we were just talking about debt. She just mentioned about not wanting to go into debt, and the last guys, debt, and the last guys is bad.
Oh, yes.
Debt.
Yeah.
And so I won't spoil. This is Christmas, guys. I won't unwrap the present. I won't unwrap the present before you. But Jack points out in this next conversation, I think, as I look at it, what they're borrowing compared to the last guys who they accused of being spend happy and borrowing too much.
You said the previous government was, quote, addicted to spending. I've heard that phrase a few times. And yet now that you're on the hot seat, this year government spending is actually increasing as a percentage of the overall economy. So So why are you so addicted to spending?
Well, what you can see with this budget is that spending as a proportion of the economy reduces significantly
It goes up
over
this year,
time.
though, right?
Yes, it does in the short term, which reflects the fact that we have had very difficult economic conditions. But here's the
So did the previous government, of
here's
course.
the key thing that I
Yeah,
want you.
very difficult economic conditions. You know that whole kind of COVID thing, the whole world closing down. No, okay, sorry, but you guys have had it tough. The last guys, fuck them. They should just deal with it. Got it.
Be aware of. We are proposing and have put in our budget the lowest operating allowance in a decade. That's the amount of money available for our discretionary spending. What is really driving spending into the future, and what you can see in our forecasts, is New Zealand superannuation, our benefit costs, and those are things that we haven't made discretionary policy choices about. Where we have controlled things is the vast majority of our new initiatives are being funded from savings elsewhere. And I'd note that the alternative approach, again, that many are promoting is don't do any savings, oppose any savings, say yes to every new spending commitment, and that would mean that our spending would be getting well out of control. We've installed discipline again.
Well, let's look at that spending. So you say that the opposition whacks it all on the credit card.
Yeah.
This year alone, you've borrowed $13 billion more than you said you would in last year's budget. According to Treasury forecasts, you're now forecast to borrow an additional $72 billion on our debt by 2029. So that would leave us with a total gross debt of $283 billion, $283,000 million. As Matthew Hooton noted, by that stage, we're going to be spending more on debt servicing every year than the budget for primary schools, police and defence combined. And
sorry, I'm sorry. I just want to have a look at this shit-eating grin.
Every year than the budget for primary schools,
when I say she
police...
was, is this. When I say she was like, it's like so obnoxious and stuff. I'm doing my best not to spoil the surprise, guys. You wait till you hear the actual relationship to the debt compared to the last guys who remember what they said about them and their debt and uncontrolled spending. Just remember.
And defence combined. And in your first 5 years in government, you are now set to borrow more money than Jacinda Ardern's government did in 6. Why are you so addicted to spending?
I share your
Did you get that? Do we get that far now? More borrowing than they did in 6.
It's almost like the line that they keep on hammering, the line that they want you to remember. National is the economic safe pair of hands. National has no choice but to make savings because they're the responsible government. And what is it? We can't say it in the House. Nobody can say it in the House, but we can say it. They are lying to you. Because they are liars.
Now we come to one of those patronising moments again. She basically congratulates Jack for asking the right question. Don't think she goes to answer the question. It's the most patronising responses in this interview.
Government did in 6. Why are you so addicted to spending?
I share your discomfort, which is why I have said we need to get that debt curve bending down.
If you're borrowing more than the previous government, you might share my discomfort, but you're not actually taking the actions that would address that surplus
But I
problem.
am taking the action.
There you go. Next clip, Chewie. Sir.
Oh, the numbers are terrifying. Now, I've got some numbers here from well-known lefty shill David Farrar.
Leftist. Woke leftist.
Comrade David has done this helpful comparison between Robertson and Willis. You can see there, it is increases across the board.
Yeah.
So if he was recklessly spending in the middle of a pandemic to keep us all in our homes, to keep our jobs safe and our fellow citizens alive, then what the fuck justifies this?
Can I add one little thing here? I am not against the concept of borrowing, more or less, because it depends what's best for the country in that moment. What I am against is these guys pointing to the last one. Remember, we have two little rules here. We will judge this government by how they judged the last, and we will judge this government by the standards they set for themselves. The way they judged the last was they borrowed too much, they spend too much, and they had a global pandemic to get through, and they still borrowed too much. Now, I mean, yes, we're about to catch her out in a lie in a second, Chewie, about Donald Trump. I'll show you what that is.
Oh,
but
yeah,
now
no,
she's
he
blaming
walks into that.
Trump for what they're doing now. Yeah, okay, Trump is a parasite. Okay, he might be a pandemic. Gotcha. But you didn't give grace to the last guys for a global pandemic, but you want grace for Trump. You didn't give grace to the last guys for borrowing because of that issue, but you want to have to be able to borrow more for what you think is an issue. And we'll just say this again. We haven't said it tonight, so we're allowed our one time. $17 billion given away, reimbursed in tax cuts and in landlord reimbursements. Hundreds of millions to the tobacco companies. Taking $13 billion off the most vulnerable female women workers in this country. And she fucking sits there and still says, we're not going to do what the last guys did. What did the last guys do? They borrowed too much and they spent too much, but you're borrowing more. Yes. We're not going to do it.
That's the most succinct sum up of this entire Q&A. That's just it. It's just Jack Tame slapping with that again and again and again. One thing I will acknowledge here that I like is the drawing of a direct line between two existential threats to New Zealand. A global pandemic and Donald Trump. They're at the same level.
I think if you zoom right in on Donald Trump, he does basically turn into one of those COVID molecules that we saw. I think it's the same.
We've spoken about this on the store multiple times with people much smarter than us. When times are tough, a government's job is to borrow and spend because it stimulates the economy. You go on infrastructure building binge, you put people in work, you do it all in-house. You build hospitals, you build schools, you build housing projects, you build fucking wind farms. You do all of that stuff because it stimulates the economy. It keeps people in jobs and it also keeps profits, hopefully, with us because we can do it all in-house. We don't have to get a foreign investor in to do it. Then when times are good, governments can fucking hit the cruise control. Everything looks after itself. But they can borrow money, they can make money out of thin fucking air. They can literally print it. You don't want to go crazy, but this is a country's job. That's what happened in COVID. Like every Western country pretty much did that. They stimulated the economy. They kept people's houses, mortgages paid. They kept them in their homes. That was stimulus. And it fucking worked.
Yeah.
And yes, there is a price to pay with a rise in inflation, but if you know that you're doing it, you can manage it. And if you come out of that period with, holy shit, we've built all of this social housing. We have all of these new hospitals that we knew needed to be replaced. We bought 50, 100-year infrastructure. That was a good reason to borrow. What isn't a good reason to borrow is something on a much shorter timeline, like military toys and landlords' profit margins. Those are poor spends on borrowed money. I know this. I don't even go to university. I just listen to smarter people. Nicola, who's a journalism major, not an economic one, might have missed that bit and has the gall to say that she won't take maths lessons from Chloe Schwarbrick in the house this week.
We probably haven't got
She
time.
does not know what's going on.
All right, next clip is the Liberation Day lie. And the reason it's a lie, Jack actually points it out, then I'll give you the receipts. Have a listen to why it's so tough. I mean, just think of poor Nicola. It's so tough for her because of external factors she can't control. Not like Labor at all, but, can't we just feel for Nicola?
There have been two significant economic things that have happened that it is important to remember. The first is that Treasury downgraded their optimism that they had previously had in the pre-election books. So any government sitting where we are would have faced smaller forecasts, and that affects your books. The second thing is there was this thing called Liberation Day, and the Trump tariffs and the response around the world led to a direct downgrading in New Zealand's economic
Minister,
forecast, which has an impact on our books going forward.
You know this as well as I do. Your Obergall X forecast that you've been relying on were out before Liberation Day. You'd pushed it back to 2029 before Liberation Day.
But actually, since
that's surplus, back into surplus 2029. So she's trying to blame Trump for that, and they'd predicted that before Trump did that day. And I'll show you the receipts in a sec.
Liberation Day. You'd pushed it back to 2029 before Liberation Day.
But actually, since the half
do you
year
accept that?
No, because I want to be clear with you, because
No, because it doesn't fit my narrative right this very second.
Since the half-year update, which you're referring to, we were on track for our outlook to be looking better. In fact, growth had been coming back into the economy.
As opposed to 2027 that you promised in the election, and only because you had that accounting trick.
But
now,
the accounting trick, Obergall X, I don't know too much about that. They're basically, in one of the earlier clips, which we didn't show, he talked about how they have changed from Obergall to Obergall X, and here we've got some stuff here. Now, this is from Westpac, I think. Westpac, yep, and it was February 2025. And in February 2025, again, just enough to get into trouble. You can see here, the bottom line is that we expect operating deficit to gradually decline, but will remain in deficit in 28-29. The government's new measure, Obergall X, will also likely remain in deficit in contrast to Haifu forecast. So this was being said in February of this year. And Trump's day was April 2nd. February, March, April. So that's a good 5 to 6 weeks before that. That was being talked about and that had been identified. So she's straight out lying. She's straight out lying there, Chewie. I think we'll just keep tracking if that's cool with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not going to get a chance to do everything because there's so much. There's the stuff on the missing their child poverty targets, and they asked if that was a broken promise, and she said no, of course it's not, even though they said they would and they didn't. Jack does a bit of a Mehdi Hasan here, where he has a look at the 18 months that they've been in government and lists their quote, end quote, achievements.
Your Working for Families changes will cut support for 61,000 young families, but at the same time you're increasing support for superannuitants who own their own homes. So why are older homeowners deserving of more help?
Sorry, this is the wrong clip. We'll keep going with it. So this is cutting Working for Families for young children, but as Jack is saying, so making it harder for young families while making it easier for older retired people. Now, we're not going to suggest that we shouldn't make it easier for older retired people, but as we've been saying all the way along, it's about choice. Why is that choice happening?
Families changes will cut support for 61,000 young families, but at the same time you're increasing support for superannuitants who own their own homes. So why are older homeowners deserving of more help, but those working families are deserving of less?
Well, again, this reflects our approach of focusing resources on those who need it most. So the Super Gold Card rates rebate is targeted at those who are on low incomes, so basically just receiving superannuation. In the case of the family changes to Best Start, all we're doing there is taking the same means testing that already exists in...
So just remember, in case, I'll go back a bit before she says it, they're going to stop giving assistance, help to families, that's households that earn more than $97,000. $97,000 is less than two people, mum and dad, working two jobs at minimum wage. So the minimum wage for mum and dad now equates to no help for your child in that first year of kindy, the 2 to 3 year olds. That's how they're helping young families.
To Best Start, all we're doing there is taking the same means testing that already exists in year 2 and 3 of that payment and restricting it so that those earning more than $97,000 a year don't receive.
Not those earning, Nikki, not those earning, those households earning. Be very careful here, because those earning makes it sound like if any one person, no, 2 people in one household, 3 people, I guess technically in one household, earning 97. That's where it cuts off. Come on, let's use accurate language here.
Payment and restricting it so that those earning more than $97,000 a year don't receive it. So actually the two, it's very consistent with our approach, which is saying...
Which is so low. It's very consistent with our approach. It's very consistent with our approach, which is fuck the poor. So it's very consistent with our approach, very consistent.
$1,000 a year don't receive it. So actually the two, it's very consistent with our approach, which is saying let's focus the support on those who need it most.
Oh, I forgot about that. Jack has a fantastic little throwaway here. You ready for this? This is a little treat. I'll go back to it now. Ready?
Approach, which is saying, let's focus the support on those who need it most.
Like private schools.
If you didn't hear that, he whispered like private schools because they'd had a previous interaction about that, which is very, very funny. I think there might be one clip to go, which is what I was going to go to, which is Jack basically listing out their quote-unquote achievements from the past 18 months. 18 months into the job.
You're 18 months into the job now, so economic growth forecasts have consistently been downgraded. Unemployment forecasts have worsened. Debt has significantly increased. That surplus that you promised would be delivered in 2027 now won't be delivered until at least 2 years later, and only because you've changed the way it's accounted for.
Mm-hmm.
You sell yourself as the party of economic management, but since you took over as finance minister, almost all headline economic indicators have got worse. How does that make you reflect on your time in this role?
Well, it hasn't been an easy run. And what I reflect on, and I think New Zealanders increasingly see it and understand it, is that we did inherit an awful fiscal.
Oh, Chewie, come on. We at least got one very clear blame Labor. We got it. We found it. It's Labor's fault we have to borrow more than Labor did in their whole 6 years. It's Labor's fault we had to give $17 billion back in tax cuts and landlord reimbursements and hundreds of millions of dollars to tobacco companies. It's It's Labor's fault that we had to give money to private schools. It's all Labor's fault, Chewie. All us emptying of our purse is all Labor's fault to have to borrow now, Chewie. Didn't you know? It's a very simple
Look, what I'd say to you, Jack, is this. The moment that we won the election, I knelt down and I tied my shoelaces together and then tried to go into a full sprint. And although I've fallen on my face very, very hard and have continued to fall on my face very, very hard for the last 2 years, I will not change path or strategy. I will continue to fall on my face for the remainder of this term in government. I have learned nothing. I will learn nothing. This is it. This is all they've got. They have spent so much time saying that they are the sole economic managers of any skill, and they haven't been able to dig themselves out of this hole because they're just standing at the bottom of the hole yelling at each other, maybe if we dig up. Like, this is the dumbest of the dumb government. And it is because they are just operating on their ideologies and not facts. It is okay to look at the facts and see how they fit your ideology, but to completely ignore all advice from Treasury, from economic experts, from just fucking common sense. Look around at countries that have tried austerity. There is heaps of evidence that it does not work. Some of them currently in progress. But you've gone, no, we're the financial geniuses in the room, we'll make it work. And it hasn't worked, and it continues not to work. And the forecaster said, well, it's pretty much going to continue not working. Fucked if I know what to do from here. See you next year, Jack.
Maybe. She might not want to go back. We've got 40 seconds to wrap up, and then we're going to wrap up the show.
And understand it, is that we did inherit an awful fiscal and economic mess. The last government had ratcheted up spending in a completely unsustainable way. It had ratcheted up debt, and the underlying economic fundamentals for this economy hadn't improved over their time in office. I need now to take responsibility for getting that fiscal house back in order, for making sure we're bending that debt curve down and taking a fundamentally different approach that doesn't make growth second to all.
Fundamentally different, yep. That says we're going to screw over the vulnerable. Fundamentally different from the last guys.
All of the other things we might like to do, but puts growth front and centre. And I'm confident that the decisions I've made have made things better, not worse.
They have not.
Well, then you
sorry to break that to you, Nikki.
Yeah, you live in a different
fundamentally,
universe.
provably have not. Nor
Different
will they.
universe.
Both you and your boss have a slogan that you want to hit. It's about growth. You don't know how to generate it. Ultimately, you can come up with all the slogans you want. If you don't know how to implement it, which you clearly don't, then it's not going to work. you've done something that I say the National Party is really good at. You've identified the problem. It's the productivity. We have a productivity problem in New Zealand, and you might not be able to solve it in a one-term government, which is exactly what you're going to be at this rate.
Yeah.
But you can't identify the problem and then ignore the fix because it's not politically expedient and it doesn't suit what your donors want.
Yes. Preach.
We need to do big transformative things. The time for shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic is fucking over. We need to change our tax bands dramatically. Like there needs to be a no tax bracket that's bigger than it is. We need to look at Australia because we want to talk about Australia's growth. First of all, copy paste their tax bands over. That's pretty much what the Greens have in their budget too. Just saying, it's fucking right out there. Then get the money out of our housing. Then crack down on the banks and the supermarkets. Those are all things that would have a huge benefit on every single person in this country. And then you can start looking at the nice to haves. The free early childhood teaching or folding early childhood centres into the Ministry of Education. Looking at our health service and making sure it's funded better because we've looked at our tax and used the evidence that the IRD has provided and has been ignored. Like, these are the things that need to happen. Nicola doesn't want to do any of them or has been told that she can't. I think it's the first one personally.
Yeah, I think that she has quite a bit of control in that situation. Alrighty, as we're going to wrap up now, Wooming says 2021 NZGP growth was 4.5. Nah, it can't be right. There was a global pandemic on, and those guys were terrible. In 2022, it was 2.8%. Gosh, I don't know. Well, your woke numbers. This is woke counting, Wooming. I'm sorry, we don't believe in woke counting here. We believe in Nikki no growth, according to JC and the Pigeon Cat.
Oh. Looks like we have to have a new T-shirt with a pretty scary graph on it.
All right, we're going to wrap up now. Just to remind you all, speaking of T-shirts, that we've got the Fuck Around and Find Out up online. If you purchase a hoodie, you also support Women's Refuge. This is only for the month of May. Women's Refuge with a safe night. If you purchase 2 T-shirts. Of any 2, you purchase 1 T-shirt and someone else purchases the other. That goes towards a safe night, but also because Fuck Around and Find Out is just there for the first time in a while, anyone who orders a hoodie or a T-shirt until further notice, it depends when our things run out, we will also throw in a 5-pack of Fuck Around and Find Out stickers as well. Something to wrap, Chewie?
Yeah. Yep. Just in.
Oh yeah, I saw that in the news. We had too much
school lunch woes. Dead insect larva found in West Auckland school meal. It's still in the rounds. David Seymour, unfucking beatable.
Yeah, it's when I saw it, I thought it got better. I thought it was a moth larva, and I think the news finally said it's not a worm, it's not a maggot, it is actually a caterpillar. So it could be a moth larva. The one thing that'll be serious about it is if, I understand some of those lunches were being prepared in Australia, literally, and being sent across. That'll be something that's pretty dangerous about it if that's the case. But that is on the agenda, Whānau. Don't you worry.
So not only could it be yucky for the child that gets that lunch, it could be devastating for our primary industries. That's fantastic.
That's a massive what if, but what if?
National have made cuts to biosecurity.
True. Willis proving you can do whatever job you want. She's incompetent, but still in her role. Whatever job you're going for, you're more qualified. Thank you for your super chat. And I think that's about us. A reminder, Whānau, that if you're in Auckland, the Long Room in Ponsonby will be there next Friday night at 7 p.m. for a general meetup. If you're a patron, at some stage in the next couple of days, we'll put more details on the Patreon to have a Patreon meetup as well. We'll give you the details of what that's going to happen. And Chewie, you want to remind people about the submissions?
Yes, because I will be unbearable. RSB is open now for the next 28 days. Lots of guides on how to do a submission. It doesn't have to be long-winded. You don't have to sound like an expert on the matter. If you just say, I utterly reject this bill and think it's dangerous for the country, I recommend that you kick it out that is a worthy submission. So yeah,
Cool.
don't have
Perfect.
to write a book about it. You just have to do it.
Just get it in there, and we all will. All right, guys, that's us for tonight. Remember, tomorrow night, as of time of live streaming, Debbie and Rawiri, both co-leaders to Te Pāti Māori, will be joining us live from 9 o'clock. I will double check that again tomorrow through the day. I will text it out. I will tweet it out. And remember, on our YouTube channel, Facebook, and Twitter feed, you've got that video from Tanya Waikato talking about the RSB. It's a really good 4-minute, 52-second block to show other people. I will pin that to my Twitter feed to make it easier to find. And that's it for us for tonight. And that's not playing. Oh, I can see why.
Why is there no song?
Because it's
We
muted.
need a song.
It's muted. I want to say it's muted.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work out what they can afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting peas from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a warpath to run, linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All have a lean either this way or that, and will be analyzed by both Chewie and Pat. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. Those big hairy
All right, whānau, that's it for us. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Remember, pass the word around. Debbie and I are going to be with us. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be lots to talk about. As I said, I think they've had a couple of joint interviews amongst Māori media, but I think this is their first non-Māori media, so it'll be a interesting time. We'll take chats from you guys. Probably we'll try and get some of your questions, but probably, if we're honest, not all of them to people. But tell people where they're going to be, and we'll catch you tomorrow night from me. That's it for me, Chewie.
Yeah, I'm going to try and keep my questions solely related around what they're wearing and the infamous Māori party drip.
Are you going to be coming in your drip? Is that a drip night?
I don't think I have appropriate drip. I don't want to make myself look foolish.
All right, guys. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.